Now, I want to make sure that I say, like, subscribe to the Tzion channel, and share the videos. But more important than that is make comments. Make comments on the videos. Like when you watch them, you can type in on YouTube, you can type in there comments. And nobody ever makes comments. I like comments, even if they're negative, because then I get to, teach. So, like and subscribe and share the videos on YouTube. Tzion channel. Okay, we are ready to begin. Huh? Okay, and Eileen teaches on Wednesday night. I send out a link for the Zoom meet. She teaches by Zoom every Wednesday night, and she's teaching on the alphabet. And it is amazing and bizarre and twisted and fun, and it's a trip. The stuff that's in the letters, it's really amazing. So I send out a link. If you want to get that link, just give me your email address and I will send you that link. Thank you. Okie doke. I have a strange teaching this week. Okay. But it's really cool. I mean, it's like the way it worked out is very mysterious and strange and amazing. So, I'm going to teach about wood, a certain kind of wood. And this is the second to the last Torah portion that deals with the tabernacle. We got one left. How many Torah portions have we looked at the tabernacle?
4.
4? Anybody else have a different opinion? Okay. All right, so we're in the second to the last one. We're going to talk about that. It's called Vayakahel. Now, a kahal, what's a kahal? What is a kahal? A gathering, a congregation is a kahal. And it says in Hebrew, Vayakahel. It's the same word. In other words, he congregated all of Israel. There's 2.5 million, 3 million people. And he turned them into a congregation. This is an impossible task. I can't even get 15 people to be a congregation. He got 3.5 million people to be a congregation. I don't know how he did that, but he did it. And he kahaled them. It doesn't just mean, hey guys, come. We're going to do stuff. It's not just like calling. It's much, much, much more than that. It implies a lot of things to the rabbis, and it means unity. And somehow he got all of Israel, at least for a moment, to be completely unified. What's the only other time that they were completely unified?
In Mount Zion.
Very good. At Mount Sinai. Remember, it says 4 times, and they traveled, and they went, and they rested. And then when they get to Mount Sinai, it switches the tense and it says, and he rested at the foot of Mount Sinai. He. 3 million people called he.
And they spoke in one voice.
And they spoke with one voice. So it's the only other time they were unified. Now, so the question is, why are they unified here? What's going on? Well, what's going on is, in previous Torah portions, Moshe said, God told me you're going to do this. You're going to build the Mishkan in this way, in this way, in this way, in this way. And everything's a picture of what's in heaven. This is what you're going to do. Now, it's going to tell us that they did it. So all this Torah portion is said, they did this, and they did this, and they did this. So before it talks about them constructing the tabernacle, it gives it gives a statute for Shabbat. It talks about Shabbat. Why? Because Shabbat is more important than even the Mishkan. And they couldn't do anything to build the Mishkan on Shabbat. So that's why the statute of Shabbat is given before the instructions about the tabernacle. Do you understand what I'm saying? How many things are not allowed to be done on Shabbat? Anybody know?
77.
Wrong. Wrong.
39.
Good. 39. 39. There's 39 things that are not allowed to be done on Shabbat. There's also 39 tavniot. Like when you look at the list of the things that were built for the tabernacle, there's 39 of them. So they correspond, they match. They're the things that are in heaven, so they are not the things that are done on earth. Does that make sense? Sorta?
No.
So maybe it'll make more sense as we go along. Because you rest, you stop building the thing,
Okay.
and you stop, so what do you think you're going to do with it?
Nothing that day?
Learn from it.
Look at it, listen to it. So you don't build it, you don't do the work to build it on Shabbat. On Shabbat, you live with it, you look at it, you listen to it, you work with it, and it talks to you. Does that make sense now? Yeah, okay. So let's read this part of the Torah portion that we're going to look at. He made the boards. Now when it says boards, I'm going to show you the boards. Don't picture a 2x4. It's much bigger than that.
6x6.
Don't picture a 6x6. It's much bigger than that. Don't picture a 12x12. It's much bigger than that. He made the boards for the tabernacle of acacia or shittim wood, standing ones, omdim. Now your version won't say standing ones, but that's what it says in Hebrew. Omdim, it means, I think it says erect or something like that. Well, in Hebrew it says standing ones. Okay, so these boards, whatever they are, however big they are, they're standing ones. 10 cubits was the length of each board, and 1.5 cubits the width of each board. You guys know how big a cubit is? 18 inches, 1.5 feet. So, más o menos, 1.5 feet. So if it says 1 cubit, you go 1.5 feet. If it says 10 cubits, 15 feet. So just add half. It's right around 1.5 feet. It's 18 to 21 inches. Depends on which cubit it is. There's 3 different cubits in the Bible. 10 cubits was the length of each board, 1.5 cubits the width of each board. There were 2 tenons for each board, fitted to one another. He did this to all the boards of the Mishkan. You're going to see what a tenon is. When you make a dovetail joint, you have a hole, and into that hole fits a tenon. That's what these are. Let's see, 20 boards. So he made the boards of the Mishkan, 20 boards for the south, 40 bases of silver under 20 boards. So therefore each board has how many bases? 2. They're made of silver. Where'd they get the silver from?
The jewelry.
Nope.
For the people.
Nope.
From Egypt.
Nope, from the half shekel. Remember, all the bases were made, there's 100 bases, they were all made from the half shekel that was taken from everybody over the age of 20. Every male over the age of 20.
But where did they get the silver before the shekel?
Got it from Egypt, I guess.
There you go.
But they got it from the half shekel, and this Shabbat is the Chetzi Shekel Shabbos. This is a Shabbat where we read the Torah portion of the half shekel. Let's see, and he made 40 bases of silver under the 20 boards, 2 bases under one board for its 2 tenons, and 2 bases under another board for its 2 tenons. And I know that right now you're going like this. Right? You got to pay attention. Every word is important. Every single word is important. Well, let's not go that far. Let's not go that far. Every word is important. Then for the second side of the Mishkan, on the north side, he made 20 boards. So there's 20 on one side, 20 on the other side. And then he talks about the back of the Mishkan to the west. 6 boards, and he made 2 boards for the corners. So how many boards are there in the back?
6.
Wow, I just said every word's important. 8. There's 6 and 2 in the corner. How many is that? So there's 8 boards on the back of it, and there's 20 on one side, 20 on the other. Now, here comes the weird part. And they were coupled beneath and together coupled to its top, to one ring or band. I'm going to show you what those rings or bands looked like. So what it's saying is, they had to kiss all the way up, and they had no power tools. And you're going to see how big these, quote, boards are. They had to kiss from the bottom at the ground all the way up, 15 feet tall, which is about as tall as that wall there, okay? And they had to kiss all the way up, and then they're bound at the top. And these are these standing ones. Then he made, then he made bars of shittim wood, 5 for the boards on the one side, and 5 bars for the boards on the other side, and 5 bars for the boards in the back. Now these bars they're as long as the Mishkan. How many cubits is the Mishkan long? Anybody know?
1.5 by
20 in the front,
20.
10 in the back. So that's 30 cubits. How big is that?
30,
Just add another.
45 feet?
Come on, guys, wake up. We got one person answering. There's 30 in the front, 20 in the front, 10 in the back. That's 30 cubits. How big is that? How many feet?
45, more or less.
45 feet. 45 feet long. Okay? One bar went all the way that entire length.
It's a tall tree.
How many feet is it? 45. And one bar went all the way. And there's 6 of them. Okay? So this is a huge operation. It's enormous. I'll show you a picture. You'll see. 5 for the bananas, and the 5 bars. Okay. And he made the middle bar to pass through the center of the boards. So one of them is hidden and it shoots all the way, which is what it says in Hebrew, shoots through 45 feet long length of boards. And they have no power tools. Mm-hmm.
How do we know which cubit is which?
You know, I didn't want to go into that, and I said I didn't want to go into it because of that. I want to keep you focused on what I'm saying. And I'm trying to get a point across, but you can't get the point if you can't picture it in your head. I've already done the research on the front end, so I know what I'm talking about. You're going to have to trust me. He made the middle bar to pass through in the center of the boards from end to end. Then he overlaid the boards with gold and made their rings of gold as holders for the bars and overlaid the bars with gold. Everything's covered in gold. Everything that touches that Mishkan, except for one thing, is covered in gold. What is not covered in gold? We read it.
The
Nope.
silver base thingies?
Right, the silver bases on the bottom. Made out of what?
Silver.
Where'd they get the silver? The half shekel. Okay. So here's the Torah portions that we've already seen the tabernacle in. And it's the whole book of Exodus, basically, almost. Yitro, the Torah portion Yitro, is when they got the 10 words. Immediately after that, the Torah portion is Mishpatim, where they got how many judgments? 63. Good. Well, 53 and then the 10 words. So we'll say 63. Very good. And then God made the covenant with Israel. Immediately after he makes the covenant with Israel, he starts saying, now, get all your stuff together. We're going to build a sanctuary for God so that he can dwell where? In them. In them. Not among them. Inside of them. And these are Jews. These are Jews. And God said, I want you to build me the Mishkan so I can live inside of you. That's pretty amazing. But that was its purpose. So, then we have Tetzaveh. God describes the holy garments and the priests and they're set apart for their service. And then Ki Tisah, God describes the incense altar and the laver and the anointing oil, the incense, all still about the tabernacle. Then Vayakahel, this week, the offerings taken, then the description of the Mishkan and its furniture. This is all about the Mishkan. That's all God wants to talk about is his tabernacle. Torah portion after Torah portion after Torah portion. And then next week is the last Torah portion in Exodus, and it's about the Mishkan. Now, if God repeats something twice, you tend to pay attention, yeah? What if he repeats it 43 times?
Well, that's something big.
Everybody ignores it. If God repeats something 10 times, everybody ignores it. Because it's boring. He's trying to say the same thing over and over, and we're like, get to the point. It's boring. So don't tell me it's not. It is. You know it is. That's why you don't pay attention to the words like Jews do. Jews obsess about all that boring stuff. We obsess about it. It's like it's all we care about. What is that letter? Why is that letter like that? Why is that space? Why is that word? Why not that word? Why this word? Why the other word? Why not this word? What's happening here? What is it? Why are we, why? And most people are like, really? That's what bothers you? That's what bugs you? Yeah. Because God said it over and over and over and over and over, slightly different ways, and we want to know why it's so important. But most people don't look at it like that. Most people just go, okay, I got it. Okay, come on, move on. But that's not the point. The point is, you better open your eyes and pay attention. All this stuff he said about the tabernacle, and then I asked most people, what did this look like? What does this look like? And they're like, I don't know. Do you see a problem? You see what I'm saying? He spent all this time talking about it, and then you ask most believers who read the book, what does this look like, and what does this look like, and how is this done? Oh. Do you see a problem? Yeah. We're supposed to know this because God spent a lot of energy saying it to us. This is what the board looks like. Can we turn the lights off, please? For a little bit? This is how big the boards are. And this is what they look like. See the slots up at the top? That's for the rings, for the bands. I'll show you. Those big things at the bottom, those little leg thingies, those are the tenons that we read about. These were enormous, 15 feet tall as that ceiling. Actually, a little bit taller than that ceiling. This is the bases. They're huge. They're a cubit by 3/4 of a cubit. A cubit is 18 inches. And it's silver, solid silver.
Heavy.
96 pounds apiece. By 3/4 of a cubit. They're enormous. And the boards fit into them on the bottom by the tenons. They sit in them.
Like a person with legs.
Right. I mean, they're really, really short legs, but they kind of look like legs. And these are called standing ones. What gives them the ability to stand this big giant thing up is the bases at the bottom and the bands at the top to keep them together. Then he made boards of the Mishkan out of shittim wood, standing ones. Look at that wood. By the way, this is accurate. This is shittim wood. Shittim wood is acacia wood, and there's lots and lots of different kinds of acacia wood. One of them is called koa, that they make guitars out of. Koa wood, it's beautiful, and it's real resonant. We're going to talk about shittim wood. 1.5 cubits the width. The length of each board, 10 cubits, 1.5 cubits the width. There were 2 tenons for each board fitted to one another. Can you imagine what an enormous operation it was to create? They're basically cutting down a tree and just shaving it. How many are there? See if you paid attention.
48.
45.
There's 6 on one side and 6 on another side.
No, not the bases, the boards. Boards had 8 in the back. How many on the north and how many on the south?
20 on each side.
20 on each side. Yes? And 8 in the back. So how many are there?
48.
How many are there?
48.
48 trees. 48 trees like that.
That's a lot of trees. Plus the ones that's for the
So then I thought, well, how did they transport these?
semi-trucks.
Yeah, semi-trucks, that's right. So this is from a Jewish site, so I can trust it. And this is By the way, in their illustration, their semi-trucks came back this far. They were too long. Same thing here. But even at that, look how huge these carts are. These are carts. So in the Bible, it says, and they loaded them on wagons. See? On wagons. And everybody on the internet has pictures of like wagon train wagons. They're like American wagons. Yeah. So it says, when Moshe had finished setting up the Mishkan, he anointed them, all the things of the Mishkan, and he consecrated them, which means just set them apart. Then the leaders of Israel made an offering, 6 covered carts and 12 oxen, a cart for every 2 of the leaders, and for each one an ox. And they presented them before the Mishkan. So where did the carts come from?
The leaders of
The leaders of Israel. Where did they get them? Here's where they got them from. No, here's where they got them from. Genesis 45. Jacob saw the wagons, it's ogalot, which means wheels, really. The ogalot that Joseph had sent to transport him. Then the spirit of their father came alive. When Jacob, who was up in Israel, and Joseph sent to get his father and bring him back down to Egypt, this is what he sent up there. And when Jacob saw this, he came to life. He was dead, and he came to life when he saw the wagons. Why? Because he knew that in the future, which I'll show you, he knew that in the future there was going to be a Mishkan where they would worship God. I'll show you that later. This is a picture of the Mishkan with the boards. Now, there are also 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 pillars in the front, and then 4 pillars in the back, separating the holy place from the Holy of Holies. And these are also huge. They're not as wide, they're as big on the bottom as the base. So they're not as big as the boards, but they are as tall as the boards and almost as big. Is your hand up?
Yes.
Yeah, yes.
So, let's just say 50 men directly around the inside of the tabernacle, plus all the congregation of the people. So those are men standing.
Okay, well, we haven't gotten there yet, but you're thinking correctly. We haven't gotten there yet. Well, you're thinking correctly. Okay. These are the bands. The rings or bands at the top. And that's what those grooves on the top are for, to bind them together. So they're unified from bottom to top. No space in between them. They are completely, perfectly unified. Here's the bars. Look how long those bars are. And there's the rings that hold them on there. And there's the little guy that passes through all the way. Now I don't believe this, but this is what the rabbis say, and I think they're saying it as a picture. They're saying that when they put the bar in, it went all the way around by itself, and it just, woo! Now, I don't believe that, but I do believe that, because I'll tell you why. When you study the 39 Tavniot, the 39 pictures of everything in heaven, when you study the tabernacle, one of the pictures is the bars that hold the Ark of the Covenant, which, remember, are huge. Yeah. They're big. They're not little tiny things. They're huge. Yeah. So the bars that hold the Ark of the Covenant, and then the smaller bars that carry the table, and the bars that go into the altar of incense. Yeah? Mm-hmm. Who carries those?
The priest, no?
The priests, yes? What is that a picture of? We know that the Ark of the Covenant being carried by the priests is a picture of God's chariot. It says that in 1 Chronicles, that it's a model of the chariot that God rides around on, yes? Mm-hmm. Okay, but what about the other stuff? What about the table of the bread of the faces and the altar? Why does that have bars to carry? What's that a picture of? And here's, right, it's a picture of the Holy Spirit. That the bar is the direct, like wherever that bar goes, that's where the thing goes. Yeah? Yes? Wherever that bar goes, that's where it's being carried. That gives it direction. Well, that's the Holy Spirit. And when I look at this, I just get excited because it's the Holy Spirit passing through all of these standing ones, all the way around. So maybe it didn't happen for real, but it certainly happened in the Spirit. It certainly happened in picture form. There's no doubt about that. Yes.
May I ask those wood makers from the acacia?
Acacia, yes.
Acacia. And you know, in a Psalm 45, we can find the garment of Yahushua was smelled on a fragrance of acacia.
Oh, that's very good. That Psalm 45 is read at Rosh Hashanah, and it's a wedding psalm.
Yes.
And it's about us being married to the Messiah in the day of the Lord, and it says that his garments smell of acacia.
Yes. Yes.
Beautiful, beautiful. Psalm 45.
Is that cedar?
It is very much like cedar. Cedar is a different word. Shittim is acacia, cedar is arez. And it's a different word, but I'm going to show you right now that it's the same thing. Good question. I'm going to show you it's the same thing in a minute. Okay, so let's talk about shittim wood. Shittim wood, in Hebrew it says etzei shittim. Etzei means woods or branches or pieces of wood. Wood acacias. But this is a trip. I would have never thought this. The word shittim comes from shotet, which means to spank or to punish or to pierce or to whip or to scourge. It smells so delightful. Think about that. It smells so wonderful. God spanking you. It's the truth. It's horrible, but it's the truth. So it comes from shotet, an active participle of an otherwise unused root meaning properly to pierce, to flog. Now, don't picture American idiot Christians flogging. That is disgusting. It is an evil sin. Flogging went on in Judaism up until we came to America. And there are some places it still happens today in every synagogue all around the world. Because in the scriptures it says to flog for sins. Don't picture the way Americans did it. It was disgusting. It was wrong. It was done very mercifully. It was done very orderly. And the people submitted to it because they knew it was right. Just like being spanked by your daddy. Yes?
Why is it atzei instead of ilan?
Atzei means plural. Atzei, woods, plural.
Why couldn't it be an ilanot?
It's not ilani, it's etz. Etz is wood.
Yes.
Ilan is tree.
Right.
That's why I said it's woods, wood pieces. Wood pieces. So, this is an important thing in Judaism, and I know you don't like it, and I know you have no connection to it. But if we had a real congregation, a real Jewish congregation, which we don't, not even close. If we had a real Jewish congregation, and most congregations in America aren't, we would flog. We would have it's called a Beit Din, which is a house of judgment with judges, and say Mary's got a problem with Eileen. They would come to the court, and they'd sit, and we'd hear the case, and we'd make a judgment according to Torah, and then the evil person, or not evil person, the one who did the sin would be flogged. Mm-hmm. This is how Judaism was always done, up until we came to America. Weird, isn't it?
I remember reading where they did it in Singapore to some young boys who had...
The Jews did it?
I don't know. No, I think it was...
No, then it's different. No,
They're Hindus.
no, that's
But
caning.
nevertheless,
No, that's
they-
caning. That's
but- that's Canaan.
yeah, that's totally different.
Okay, they-
That's as evil as what the Americans did.
What?
It's
No.
evil. It's evil. Unless it's done the way Scripture says to do it, it's evil. Where does it say in the Bible to flog?
I don't know.
You should know. Deuteronomy chapter 25, verses 1 through 4. You should know this. It says to do it in Deuteronomy 25. So, that's what this is about. It's about scourging, whipping, flogging. And it's shittim wood? Isn't that strange? So here's what Jusinius says. I love Jusinius usually. Shita, acacia, spina aegypticia, or whatever, of the ancients, a large tree growing in Egypt and Arabia, having the bark covered with black thorns, from which gum, Arabic, exudes. It has blackish pods, And the wood is very hard, and when it grows old, it resembles ebony. Ebony is black or dark brown, and it's the second hardest wood.
Yeah, really hard.
It's the second hardest wood there is on the planet. And it looks like ebony. It's not ebony, but it looks like it when it gets old. Then it says acacia is acacia wood. Okay, then there's a couple places in the Bible that are called shittim. Micah 6:5, my people, remember now what Balak, king of Moab, planned and what Bilam ben Baor answered him from Shittim, which is in the desert, to Gilgal, which is in Israel. So it's saying, remember what happened to you Jews with Bilam right before you went into the land. Remember what happened. From the time he came, when you were in Shittim, in the desert, all the way to Gilgal when you went in the land, and how horrible it was, so that you might know the righteous acts of the Lord. So what does that tell you about Shittim? Desert, because that's where they were. Yes? Makes sense? Joel 3, in that day the mountains will drip with sweet wine, and the hills will flow with milk, and all the brooks of Judah will flow with water, and a spring will go out from the house of the Lord. From where?
The desert.
No, from the house of the Lord where? You should know this.
From the south.
Very good, from the south side of the temple. And it goes out from the south side of the temple, and it goes and it gets, like ankle deep for 1,000 cubits, and the prophet went another 1,000 cubits, and it was up to the knees, and he went another 1,000 cubits up to his hips, another 1,000 cubits down to the Dead Sea. Couldn't even wade through it. It was such a raging river that made everything that it touched alive. That's what it's talking about. From the house of the Lord, and water the valley of the desert. So it's about water coming into the desert. So Shittim is always found in the desert. It's always found in the desert. Now I don't want to put anybody down. I'm not saying anything, negative about Christians or anything like that. But I do my research. And I read a lot. And I read a lot about what the Jews say, and I read a lot of what Christians, like if you clump them all together, like a body of doctrine that they say. And this was the body of doctrine about Shittim from the Christian side. The Shittim tree doesn't mean anything. God chose it because it's in the desert and it's water resistant and very hard, and it lasts a long, long time, and that's why God chose it. So don't look for any meaning in it. That's kind of the general consensus.
Yeah.
Then I go to the Jewish side and I find a book this thick about the Shittim. That a rabbi wrote a book this big just about the Shittim tree. That's it. That I like. That makes sense to me. Why would God put this in the Bible if it didn't mean something after saying everything in that tabernacle is what? A picture of heaven. And then he says, well, not that part. Not that part. I just chose that because it's a cool car. Better than another one. It's ridiculous. Of course it means something. So, here's where we start with the meaning, is this. All the furniture of the Mishkan was made out of it. Every single picture that's furniture that was made for, to show us what heaven is made out of this stuff. So shouldn't we know what it's a picture of? Mm-hmm. Doesn't that make sense? Yeah?
Yeah.
The ark, the table, the golden altar, and the boards. The thing itself is made out of it. So this is really important. And I'm going to try to make it applicable to your life. So it's not just information. Because information will just make you prideful. So we know the Mishkan is a picture of heaven, yeah? Okay. Psalm 11:4, these are verses about God being on a throne. Remember I told you that if you look at the Mishkan, at the Holy of Holies, people call it a throne room. It is not a throne room. Because a throne room is where a king sits, and what happens in the throne room? People come in and he makes judgments, and they get a judgment. Ain't nobody can go in there, right? So how can it be a throne room? There's nobody in there except one guy one time a year, the high priest. So it's not a throne room, but it is a picture of God's throne. I told you in 1 Chronicles chapter 28, it says that the Ark of the Covenant is a model of what? I said this a little while ago. The Ark of the Covenant is a model of what?
The throne.
The chariot.
The chariot. Thank you, Becca. It's a model of God's chariot that he rides around on. Yes? That's what the Ark of the Covenant is. And that's in the Holy of Holies. The Holy of Holies itself is a model of his throne. The whole tabernacle is a model of his throne. Really, it just gets tighter and tighter and tighter and more focused. That's all. But this whole thing is his throne. The Lord is in his holy temple. The Lord's throne is in heaven. His eyes test the sons of men. 1 Kings, Micaiah. Oh, I love this story about Micaiah. Micaiah, he wouldn't shut up. And it got him in trouble. And so he goes before the king, and the king says, all the prophets, 400 of them, are all unified, and they're all saying the same thing. They're saying, go up in the battle, you will win. And so Micaiah says, okay. He says, tell us what the Lord says, Micaiah. And he goes, go up in the battle and you will win. And the king goes, how many times do I have to tell you, tell me the truth? He goes, all right, I'll tell you the truth. And that's what he says. He says, I saw God, the Lord, sitting on the throne, and all the angels of heaven standing by him on his right and on his left. And he said, who will entice King Ahav to go up and get killed? And one spirit said this, and another spirit said that. And God said, how will you entice him? And the spirits answered and said, I will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all of his prophets. And all the prophets are right there prophesying. And he says, and I will be a lying spirit in the mouth of all his prophets. And so the Lord said, go and do. Isn't that a trip to see that in the Bible? A conversation between God and demons that are in the throne room. All the spirits are there, and he's getting ideas from all of them. Okay. Psalm 97, clouds and thick darkness surround him. Righteousness and justice are the foundation of his throne. Isaiah 6, I saw the Lord sitting on a throne, high and lifted up. His robe filled the temple. Seraphim were standing above him, each having 6 wings, and one called out to another, Kadosh, 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 Adonai Tzavaot, Malo Kol Haaretz Kvodo. This is what the Lord says. Heaven is my throne, and earth is the place of my feet. They translate it footstool. Heaven is my throne, and earth is the place of my feet. Where then is the house you're going to build for me? That's how big I am. It's too big. You can't make a temple that big. That's what he's saying. It's too big. Okay. Daniel chapter 7. I saw until thrones were put, and the Ancient of Days took his seat. His throne was ablaze with flames, and its wheels a burning fire. What wheels? God's throne has wheels? Yes, the chariot. Yeah. So those wheels are pictured by the rings that are on the Ark of the Covenant. And they're big. They're not little tiny rings. They're huge rings. Yeah. And that's a picture of the wheels on next to God's throne. Revelation 5, I looked and heard the voices of many angels around the throne, and the living creatures and the elders, and the number of them was myriads and thousands, et cetera, et cetera. All right, so if you look at this as a picture of God's throne and temple and all that, what are the standing ones from what we just read? I think they're angels, right?
Yeah.
Okay. So here's the revelation God gave me this week. And it flipped me out. It flipped me out. And if this is wrong, God forgive me. And I hear God gave me a revelation. What if it's not? What if it was an enticing spirit that went before the throne? How can we entice Rabbi Washer? Right. So, I hope this is true. I just love this. I love this so much. So here's the boards. Here's those bases of copper or bronze in the front pillars. We didn't talk about that. It's the only thing that's not gold or silver on the whole tabernacle. Here's the back pillars that are silver bases, and then there's a space here for the high priest to go in one time a year. See that?
Yep.
Okay. So if I was to say to you that this is God's throne and that there are angels around it, how many would you say are around it? Look at it and count them. How many are there around it? Just that. Just the Holy of Holies.
24.
1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 and a half. 10 and a half, 11 and a half, 12 and a half, 13 and a half, 14 and a half, 15 and a half, 16 and a half, 17 half, 17, 18, 19, 20, 21, 22, 23, half, 24. Okay, I'm laying in bed.
Why aren't you using the full quarter?
Because this is what the rabbis say. There's really a quarter. It's not even a half, it's a quarter. But the rabbis read it as a half. I checked that out, believe me. So I'm lying in bed, and I'm getting ready to get up, and I saw this. And I went, what? How many? And I count in my mind. I'm counting them in my mind. Now, the only reason I can do this is because I go to Jewish sources. I don't go to Christian sources. I've had this book since the 90s, 92. It is amazing. It's called The Mishkan and the Holy Garments, and it's everything about the tabernacle and the garments of the priests. And the pictures are horrible. They're just awful. It looks like it was drawn by a 4-year-old. They make him look like a caveman. It's just awful. But all the information is here. So all I had to do was learn it and then do a better illustration. Fantastic, fantastic book. So I counted 24, and I'm like, wait, there's 24 around the throne?
Right.
That's in the Bible.
Yeah.
There's other 24s in the Bible around the throne.
Right.
Okay, so that's what hit me. So I just want to make sure you understand this. There's 6.5 on the north, 6.5 on the south, 6.5 on the north, and 7, because we have 2 plus 2 halves on the back. That's 24. And they're around God's throne. Yes?
Yes.
Not his throne room, his throne.
Right.
All right, so that quick I got the whole teaching. I had all of it. I had all the scriptures, I had all the concepts, I had the whole everything, except the meaning of shittim. That's the only thing I didn't have. So, Revelation chapter 4. We'll start in Revelation, which I don't like to do, but at least it'll give you some familiarity with what's going on. He who was sitting was like a yashpe stone, a jasper stone, and a sardius. What color is jasper?
Like auburn, like an auburn color?
Right, auburn, orange, yellow, kind of reddish, orange and yellow mostly. Okay, and what color is a sardius?
Sardis color.
Red, straight up red. And a rainbow around the throne, like an emerald. What color is an emerald?
Green.
Green. Around the throne were 24 thrones. Around the throne were 24 thrones. Who's sitting on those?
Malachim.
Around the throne are 24 thrones? Who's sitting on those?
The prophets and the apostles.
The apostles and the heads of the tribe.
Okay, so it says 24 thrones, and on the thrones I saw 24 elders sitting, zikanim, elders, bearded ones, clothed in white garments.
Priest.
Yes. So if they're clothed in white garments, they are immediately, no, not high priests, priests.
Any of the
Priests.
sons of Ishmael?
And golden crowns on their heads.
Priest king.
Now that could be, it could be priest kings or it could be high priests, plural. Because the high priest wore tzitz, which is a crown.
Oh,
Okay? Which, by the way, I'm teaching on next week. Revelation chapter 5, verse 8. When he had taken the scroll, the 4 living ones and the 24 elders fell down before the Lamb, each one holding a harp. So what does that tell you they are?
Musicians.
It tells you they're priests. There were 24 courses of musician priests who played harps, plural. There's 3 different kind of harps, and cymbals, and trumpets, and something else that I can't remember. And this is what they did in the temple. And they were courses, like choirs. 24 choirs of priests. You can find this in 1 Chronicles chapters 23, 24, 25, 26. All right, so there's 24 elders. They fall down before the Lamb, each one having a harp. Golden fire pans. Now, your Bible will say either censers or vials, which is really stupid. That's horrible, vials. I picture like a mad scientist. That's what, but in Hebrew, it's machtot. Machteh is a fire pan that the priest would use to scoop up live coals from the altar and then take it and put it on the golden altar and the incense goes up. That's what a machteh is, and that's what they're holding. And there's 7 of them, full of incense, which are the prayers of the holy ones. So here's some priests with harps. And by the way, any illustrations I don't put stuff you find on the internet unless it's a Jewish source. Or if I do the artwork myself. I'm not going to let people see wrong. And I did this one of the machteh. And these are priests, and they've got 2 different kinds of harps here.
And they have flutes.
And flutes. That was the other one. That was the other musical instrument. Pierced ones, yes. All right, Matthew 19. Now, so here's what I started thinking. 24 elders sitting around God's throne on thrones? Where is that in the Torah, in the Tanakh? And who are they? And what does that mean? So in Matthew 19, it says, Yeshua said to them, truly I say to you, that you who have followed me later on in the regeneration, what is that? What's the regeneration in Jewish? Resurrection, right. Regeneration is a Greek term. It's the resurrection in the day of the Lord. You who have followed me, later on in the resurrection, when the Son of Man will sit on his glorious throne, you also will sit upon 12 thrones. Judas is going to sit on one of those thrones? This is why it was important that in Acts chapter 1, he was replaced by Mattityahu, another Matthew. Yeah? It says that. It's in Scripture, in Psalms also. It says, let somebody else take his place. And so they got together in Acts chapter 1 and they said, we got to do something about this shaliach that went off the rails. And so they replaced him by the Holy Spirit with a guy named Mattityahu. All right? So there's still 12. Judging the 12 tribes of Israel. Judging the 12 tribes of Israel. Who's going to judge the 12 tribes of Israel? Come on. Who's going to judge the 12? No. Who's going to judge the 12 tribes of Israel? We just read it.
Those that sit on the throne.
Come on. How many? The 12 apostles or shlachim, sent ones. Yes? They're going to judge the 12 tribes of Israel? Really? Wow. Luke 22, I grant you that you may eat and drink at my table in the kingdom, and you will sit on thrones judging the 12 tribes of Israel. That is a trippy verse, man. I mean, that's a trippy concept, really. Revelation 21. Now, this is after the day of the Lord, after the kingdom. After the kingdom. What year does the kingdom start?
6001.
6001. What year does the kingdom end? 7001. So this is now 7001, after the kingdom. He carried me away in the Spirit to a great high mountain and showed me the holy city, Jerusalem, coming down out of heaven from God. Her brilliance was like a stone, a crystal clear jasper, It had a great and high wall with 12 gates. And at the gates, 12 angels. So in the Tanakh, if you went to Jerusalem, there were gates around. What was in the gates?
Judges, wise leaders.
Before the judges got in there, who was in there? Gatekeepers. You ever heard that phrase, gatekeepers? They're priests. The priests would be in the gates around Jerusalem. And they're the gatekeepers. And guess how many courses of gatekeepers there are? Just take a guess. 24. That's in 1 Chronicles chapter 23, 24, 25, 26, 27. All right. So here it says there were angels. So no, not messengers, angels. So therefore, what were in the gates?
Priests.
Gatekeepers, and what are there? They're priests. Here it says they're angels. Therefore, priests are a picture of angels. And we're going to talk about this more next week. And the wall of the city had 12 foundation stones. Don't ask me how big they are. I haven't figured this out yet. And on them 12 names of the 12 apostles. Now, on the Choshen, the 12 stones that were on the Choshen, I'm sorry, I tried to get a piece of artwork up this week that had the Choshen on it, and I just didn't have time. So, and you're going to find out why in a few minutes. So there were 12 stones on the Choshen, the breastpiece, not breastplate, breastpiece, and it had inscribed the 12 tribes' names. Yes?
Yes.
Here is foundation stones on the city for each gate, and what's written on them? No, the 12 apostles' names. You see what's happening here? There's 12 leaders of the tribes and 12 leaders of what?
Apostles.
Yeah, but what are they? Leaders of what?
The Jews.
I knew you were going to say that. And I'm not saying anything wrong. It's just that that's how people have been conditioned to think. It's totally upside down and backwards.
So showing that means the send out, the ones who go out into the
Okay,
world.
but you're missing my point. You're missing my point. There's 12 leaders of Israel, the 12 tribes, and then there's the apostles, 12 leading what? So what most people have been taught is they're leading the church or the Gentiles or something. No! They're leading Israel along with the other 12 tribes. Why? Because there's 24 leaders. There's always 24 leaders, that's what I'm showing you. There's 24 courses, 24 leaders, 24 divisions. You see what I'm saying? So there was only 12 tribes. So how are we going to get, 24 leaders? 12 apostles. That has nothing to do with, quote, church or Gentiles or anything like that. It's all Israel. It's Jerusalem, for goodness sake. So, the 12 names of the 12 shlachim. All right, so here's where it really comes together, is in 1 Chronicles 25, 6, 7, 8. And it tells how David divided up the kingdom. Can you imagine dividing up, like from here to Las Cruces, and you're in charge of all the business and all the infrastructure and all the government and all the economy, and you have to set everybody in place to do all of it, and you're in charge? How are you going to do that? It's a huge, huge operation.
Yeah, right. That's the only way.
Okay? And really, that's the only answer by the Holy Spirit. And that's what it says in the passage, which I'll show you. But I want you to understand that when David started dividing everybody up, he always divided them into 24 groups. Always. And there's a reason for it. David gave to his son Solomon the Tavnit, the picture of the porch, its buildings, its storehouses, its upper rooms, its inner rooms, the room for the atoning cover, the picture of everything he had. That's what it says in Hebrew, baruach. Everything he had by the Spirit for the courts, also for the divisions of the priest. The Holy Spirit showed him, and there's a reason for it, why to do 24 courses of the priests. And the Levites, 24 courses of Levites. And for all the work of the service of the house of the Lord, and for the vessels of the service in the house of the Lord, and for the altar of incense. And by the way, see those ellipses? This is 1/5 of the passage. I'm just giving you the tip of the iceberg. There's a lot of stuff listed that he got pictures by the Spirit for. And for the altar of incense, refined gold by weight, and gold for the model of the chariot. Did you ever see that in the Bible, that the ark is a model of the chariot? Isn't that a trip? And the cherubim that spread out their wings and covered the ark of the covenant of the Lord. All of it, this whole shopping list of the whole kingdom. The Lord made me understand in writing by his hand upon me all the details of this picture. He saw it in a vision. He saw it in a picture. How to divide up the entirety of the nation, how to divide up all the priests and all the Levites and all the army, it says also, and the agricultural workers, even down to the donkey keepers. Did you know this? And the ones who took care of the oil, and the ones who took care of the wood, and the ones who took care of everything that goes in and out of that temple, and the whole workings of the temple, and the plans for the temple itself. Solomon didn't do it, David did it. 1 Chronicles 24. Now the divisions of the seed of Aaron, so for the priests, for all the priests, Eleazar and Ithamar served as priests. David divided them according to their offices for their ministry. How did he divide them? According to what?
According to their offices.
According to what?
Their offices.
According to what?
With details.
All the details that was shown to him by the Spirit, by the Holy Spirit. That's how he divided the priests. Since more chief men were found from the seed of Eleazar than the seed of Ithamar, they divided them 16 for Eleazar and 8 for Ithamar, according to their fathers' houses. Now, I think that corresponds to the 8 boards and the boards and pillars here. That I can't prove. Everything else I've said I can prove. But that's just a thought I have. It may be. But I know this, that they divided 8 to Ithamar and 16 to Eleazar. So I'm thinking, okay, so what? Why is that? Why? Well, I'll show you why. Now, just to show you that there's 24 courses, the first lot came for Jehoiarib and the 24th for Maaziah. So there's 24 courses of priests, 24 courses of Levites. So here's what the rabbis said about this concept. The courses in Hebrew is called ma'amad. Ma'amad. Say ma'amad.
Ma'amad.
That's standing ones. Omdim.
Wow.
It's the same word. Ma'amad means standing ones.
So you
In other words,
and it's not.
they're standing in place in the temple, in their course. Okay?
Yeah.
It's called ma'amad. But linked with every ma'amad. How many ma'amads are there? 24. And linked with every ma'amad is also this other thing, which I'm going to show you. So here's how it worked. How did they bring the Bikurim up to Jerusalem? All the cities of a ma'amad. All the cities of a ma'amad. So how many cities do you think there are of ma'amad? There's 24. There's 24. Which I'll show you. One of 24 regions, each of which sent in turn their delegation to the temple to be present and represent the entire people at the public sacrifices. They would all go into the city of the Ma'amad, like say you live in Hebron, and we would all gather in Hebron and we'd get our priest and we'd say, priest, go to your course up in Jerusalem. We're going to hang out down here until everybody gets together. And they would sleep in the streets of the city without going into the houses. And when they all got up in the morning, the supervisor would say, arise and let's go up to Zion, to the house of the Lord our God. Okay? So meanwhile, the standing one, the priests, they're on their way up to Jerusalem to do their course. Jerusalem Talmud, Bikurim. On the above Mishnah, for example, Yehoyariv and its acquaintances. What does that mean? What that means is the place is called Yehoyariv. Yehoyariv is the priest who has a course, has a ma'amad.
Right.
The name of the ma'amad is Yehoyariv. And we'll say he's from Hebron. We'll say that's his place. Yeah? So it says, on the above mission, for example, Yehoyariv and its acquaintances. That's all the people that are down in this city waiting to go up to Jerusalem. Okay? They're called Yehoyariv. That whole group is called by the name of the priest who leads the course.
Like a delegate.
How many are there?
24.
24 leaders. The 24 Ma'amad districts were given the names of the leaders of the courses. Isn't that a trip? I didn't know that. What that mean? Do you understand what it's saying?
Yeah.
It's saying all of Israel is divided up into 24 areas. And they're named for these priests.
Right.
It's into how many areas divided up?
24.
But there's only 12 tribes. So you got to have 12 others.
Yep.
Does that make sense? To represent who? All of Israel. Has nothing to do with the quote church. Nothing. It's to represent Israel. We just got to have another 12 because we got 12 of the names of the tribes.
Do you think that names for the priests relate to names of angels?
Do I think that the names of the priests relate to the names of the angels? Yes, but only one. His name is Melchizedek.
Not 24.
His name is Melchizedek. As for the other ones, it probably does, but I haven't had time to research that. What are the ma'amadot? What are the ma'amads? What is that? Standing ones, courses, divisions. What is it? Since it is said, tell the children of Israel and say to them, my offering, my food. In other words, you better bring it up to me. It's mine. I want you to bring my offering up. Bring it up. That's what they're, bring my lunch, right? That's the concept he's saying. Now, how can a man's offering be offered if he doesn't go up to Jerusalem and offer it?
By law of agency.
Wrong. He has to go up to Jerusalem. Why? Because 3 times a year, all Jewish males have to do the Shloshim Reglaim and go up to Jerusalem 3 times a year. What are they? Oh my God. Pesach, Shavuot, and Sukkot. Okay. You lost your mind there for a second. All right. So how can a man's offering be made if he isn't present? He has to go up.
It's rhetorical, obviously.
Therefore, the former prophets instituted 24 mishmarot. I thought David did.
Well,
I thought David did.
right?
Well, David set it up, but they instituted it, they
No,
enforced it?
it's talking about David. See, when you say the former prophets a long time ago, you go, that's people besides David. No, it's not. It's David. It's David. So then he says, they instituted 24 guards, mishmarot. For each mishmar, there was a ma'amad. All right, so there's our ma'amad. What does ma'amad mean? Standing ones. And accompanying every ma'amad is a mishmar. Here's where the plot thickens. A mishmar. Mishmar means, let me say it this way. If you saw any Christian movie about the New Testament, like Jesus of Nazareth or any of that, they destroy your mind about this. And they have these guards, temple guards, and they're standing there with spears, and they got swords, and they're wearing some weird Persian-looking armor. And they call them temple guards. And then I've heard teachers who were teaching in the New Testament where it says, and the temple guards, this or that, and they talk about them like that. These were mean people. These are the priests. These are the 24 courses of the priests. Yes?
Yeah.
Because with each ma'amad is a mishmar. With each mishmar is a ma'amad. With each standing one is a guard. In other words, there's 24 courses of standing ones along with 24 courses of temple guards. Yes?
Yeah.
I told you There's gates, and who goes into the gates?
The priest.
They call them gatekeepers. Those are the mishmarim. Those are the watchers. Those are the guards. That's them. For each mishmar, there was a ma'amad at the temple in Jerusalem consisting of priests, Levites, Israelites. When the time came for the mishmar to go up to Jerusalem, the priests and the Levites went up, and the Israelites of that mishmar assembled in the cities. And what do? They start reading Bereshit. So, what time of year is it?
Rosh Hashanah.
No, it's be right after Sukkot. Because
Right. It's after Sukkot. Remember, you don't start over until after Sukkot. Right. Okay. So now here's why I think this is so important to you. Because if you don't know that Abraham did Judaism, you don't know the Bible. Period. It is the most important verse in the entire Torah, in my opinion, that God said Abraham did Judaism. I believe this is the most important verse in the entire Torah, the Tanakh, the Old Testament. And I believe that because everything changed. When Yeshua came, everything changed. And yet, the people that are doing this new thing that isn't Judaism say, I'm a child of Abraham. I have the faith of Abraham. And yet they're not doing what Abraham did, which is Judaism. You see my logic? So that's why I find this so important. And what I'm going to show you is that Abraham did the mishmarot, the guard of the temple, which means he did the mishmarim, which is the priestly courses. How? There was no temple. There was not even a tabernacle yet. 430 years before the Torah was given. That's why I think this is important. Okay, so we have 24 mishma'adot and mishmarot. They are cycles and courses and divisions of the priests, the Levites, and all of Israel on Shabbat, new moon, and festivals. It's all the courses of going up to Jerusalem and back, and up to Jerusalem and back, and when you go, and what you do when you get up there, and what you see. So here's from Ramban, which is Nachmanides, the what do they call the major rabbi of? No, I can't think. Head rabbi or something. I can't remember. There's a title for it. The head rabbi of Spain in the 1100s. He says this: where then have we heard that Aaron divided his sons into 24 courses? Aaron divided his sons, not David. Where does it say Aaron divided his sons into 24 courses? Remember, he only had those 4 boys, and then they had kids, and so you had all these priests, and it said that 8 were given to one kid and 16 to the other. Where does it say that in the Bible, though? And this is important. You may not think it is, but it is. In the verse 1 Chronicles 24:19, following the division of the priests by David and Zadok into 24 divisions, where it is stated, and he quotes it, these were the orderings of them in their service to come into the house of the Lord, according to the ordinance given to them by the hand of Aaron. But God showed it to David. So why do we have to know Aaron saw this and did this? Do you see what I'm saying? It doesn't say anything in the Torah about Aaron or Moses dividing up the priests into 24 groups, does it? But it says it here. And so here's why this is important. God showed to Abraham what he showed to Moses and Aaron, what he showed to David, what he showed to the prophets, what he showed to Yeshua, and what he's supposed to be showing to the believers. But they don't see it. So we got a problem. Do you see what I'm saying? The trail has stopped. The trail of God handing down what he wants and what he says and how he wants people to understand, it stopped when Hellenism came along. And it just gutted the Jewish body of its Judaism. So that now you have the whole concept that we have of church and all that, which just didn't exist. It stopped. And what I want to show you is this is an unbroken chain since at least Abraham. God wants this known. He wants this known. By the hand of Aaron, as the eternal, the God of Israel, had established him. We thus learn that this mitzvah of dividing the priest into mishmarot was already given to Moses and Aaron. Okay? So David was shown in a tavnit by the Ruach to do the same that Moses and Aaron did. And Moses and Aaron was shown by the Ruach to do the same as Abraham did. So there should be some place where God says, I want to Abraham, I want you to do all of Judaism. The Torah, the mitzvah, the mishpatim, the chokim, and even the mishmarot. Yes? Even the courses of the priests. And that's what it says. I will multiply your seed as the stars of heaven, and I will give your seed all these lands. By your seed, all the nations of the earth will be blessed, because, only for one reason, because Abraham did Judaism. Abraham listened to me and kept my watch. Mishmarat. Isn't that a trip? Watch what? How? Watch what? Watch what? How? Yeah. In other words, somehow, I haven't found out how yet, but at least I can see this. He set up the temple and had priests. Who came and taught him Judaism? No, who came like physically and taught? Those kids. Melchizedek, who is a priest of God Most High, and who was the king of Shalem, Jerusalem. He's a king and a priest, and he has no mother and no father, no genealogy. Right. Who is he? Shem. He's a priest from heaven. Right. And he came down from heaven, from Shalem, and he was a priest king, just like all the angels, because that's what they are. Mm-hmm. No, it's not Mashiach. It's Melchizedek, and it is not Mashiach. It's all, what I'm showing you is that all the things that are around God's throne, we call them angels, they're priests and they're kings. Because they had crowns. And this is why God said to Israel in Exodus 19, I'm making a covenant with you, Israel. I'm going to make a covenant with you, Israel. And you will be a goy, a nation of priests and kings. Just like the angels. Just like the angels. Because the Jewish people are a picture of what's in heaven. So he did the mishmarat, can't tell you how, but he did. My mitzvot, my chukim, and my Torot. Abraham did Judaism. Abraham did Judaism. That is mind-blowing. I remember the day I learned this. I read it, and I thought I misread it. And I went back and I read it, and I thought I misread it again, and I checked the Hebrew, and I was like, what? Nobody ever told me this. How did I miss this? That was Abraham a Jew or a Gentile? Gentile. He was a Gentile. And he did Judaism. And that's the faith of Abraham. That is the faith of Abraham. And then the believers come along and say, I'm a child of Abraham by faith, but they don't do the works of Abraham, which is Judaism. So they cannot possibly learn what Abraham learned. That's why this is important. These patterns were created and they were repeated over and over and over again. So now we got 24 angels, which are priests, heads of divisions of priests, 24 elders, which are the heads of the tribes of Israel and the apostles around the throne. Yeah? This is a priest, by the way. This is what their garment looked like. The linen checker work. Nobody ever puts that. It says in Hebrew, linen checker work. And then the sash, which has blue and purple and scarlet and white linen and gold thread. This is what we're going to talk about next week. This is a priest. Hebrews chapter 8 says if Yeshua were on earth, he would not be a priest, since there are those who offer according to the Torah, who serve unto the example and shadow of heavenly things. What's the example and shadow in this verse? Is it what they're serving, the tabernacle or the temple, or is it the priests themselves?
Tabernacle.
Okay, the way they translate in the Bible is to make it sound like the tabernacle is the shadow that they're serving. It does not say that in Greek. Here's the Greek. Who to an example and shadow are offering divine service of the celestial ones, of the heavenly things. So, what's the shadow and picture in the verse? Is it the priest or is it the tabernacle? We already know the tabernacle is a shadow. Now we got that the priests are a shadow of what's in heaven. The Jewish priests are a shadow of what's in heaven. You look at a Jewish priest, you learn what they wore, you learn how they lived, you learn what they did. You will see what the activity in heaven. Details of the activity in heaven. Specificity of the activity in heaven. Do you understand what I'm saying? That's why it's important to you. Somebody comes to you with a gallbladder problem and they say, "Can you pray for me?" And you might just lean on all the stuff you've always heard instead of getting information from heaven so that you can minister like they would properly with the right words and the right actions, etc. Does that make sense? Yep. This is just the tip of the iceberg. So there's priests in heaven, so there's priests on earth. Now we're going to talk about what the priests are made out of. Acacia. The priests are made out of acacia wood. Right? Yeah. They're standing around the throne. Yes? They're priests. There's priests on earth, so there's priests in heaven. We call them angels. But they're really priests. Yes? Yes. What are they made out of? I mean, spirit. They're made out of spirit. As gentle as the dust on a butterfly's wings. They're made out of just the opposite, shittim wood, which is strong. The one thing about shittim wood is that it disciplines, it strikes, it is strong. That's the main thing about shittim wood. I need you to get Eileen in here. So, these are acacia trees. You know how many different kind of styles and types of acacia trees there are? Something like 100. And one of them, the one I like, is called koa, and it grows only in Hawaii. And they make guitars out of it, and it's gorgeous, and it's real resonant. It means it carries the sound a long way. Why? Because of the internal strength of the wood. It's different from other woods. It's got an internal strength to it. So, this is what Rashi says, and shittim wood. But from where did they get this in the wilderness? These big giant trees. Where did they get that? You can find acacia trees in the wilderness, but where are they going to find ones that big? And so he says, there isn't any in the desert, not like this. So where did they get this in the wilderness? Rabbi Tanhuma explained it like this. Our father Jacob foresaw, by the gift of the Holy Spirit, that Israel would once build a Mishkan in the wilderness. And so he bade his children. He therefore brought cedar. Now this is Rashi saying this is where they got the shittim. Cedar is a different word. It's araz. So they're almost the same thing. They are interchangeable trees. Now why do I say this? Because every time Lebanon is mentioned in the Bible, Lebanon means white, It's mentioned along with its most famous attribute.
Right.
What's its?
Big cedars.
The cedars of Lebanon. And then there's all these psalms that say, let's go up to Jerusalem, to Lebanon, and see the cedars.
Right.
It ain't talking about cedars. It's talking about angels. The big giant ones in Lebanon, which is not Lebanon, it's Zion in heaven. Because it's white, Lebanon, white, like the temple. It's lifted up, it's tall, and there's these great ones there. And these are the angels. And so, these are not my words. These are the words of the rabbis, okay? And they say lots and lots about this, about all the angels that show up in Zion when you go up to Mount Zion to seek the high place, Lebanon. Does that make sense?
Yes.
So cedar and araz, they're basically the same thing. I'm sorry, shittim and araz are basically the same thing. So he says, therefore he brought cedar plantlings or seeds to Egypt, from Israel to Egypt, and planted them there while they were all down in Egypt. And he told his children to take these with them when they leave Egypt. How are they going to take them back to Israel when they leave Egypt?
Wagons.
The wagons that they brought to get him. See how it all ties together? And that's in Midrash Tanchuma and Terumah 9 and Bereshit Rabbah 94 and other places, by the way. So we have the acacia is a promise of both the land of Israel and of the tabernacle.
Yeah.
It's a promise. It's like, if there's no shittim wood, this ain't going to happen.
Right.
So here's why it's important. So I bought a guitar. And
Is it shittim wood?
I didn't know at the time, but it is. It's shittim wood. When I bought it, I did a lot of research, and I wanted to buy a guitar. I wanted to buy a 6-string guitar. And I did all this research, and I finally found the one I wanted, and I said to myself, there is no way it can be that price. It's impossible. It's absolutely impossible. And it was. And I was like, man, that's gorgeous wood. That is gorgeous. And it said, it's koa. And then I go about my business. This is a month ago. I did this a month ago. And it finally showed up yesterday as I'm teaching about shittim. And I'm going through all my stuff about acacia, and it says the koa from Hawaii is an acacia. I'm like, no way! And I got an acacia wood guitar. So what did I do? I wrote a song about trees with my that we can sing on my acacia wood guitar. So I'm like, man, this is amazing. It's just amazing to me. So it's not just all this stuff that I've seen before. It's that the actual substance that the pictures were made out of is like one of the biggest pictures there is, which is the angels surrounding God's throne. So I don't want you to ever picture small boards again. Picture those big giant things, timber. And here's what I'm going to end with. Remember, it's made out of pierce, whip, beating, stripes, right? That's what it means. And they're angels. Everybody says they want God to do stuff in our life from heaven, right? This is what he does. He spanks. He spanks. And this is the greatest blessing there is. But how does he spank? Because remember, I always say this, all you got to do is turn the page. If you don't like what's being said, all you got to do is turn the page. Here's how he does it. Ecclesiastes, well, if I asked you, how does he do it? Tell me how God spanks us from heaven. How?
He gives us a blessing that shows up as a problem, and then we gotta fix ourselves.
Too complicated. Give me a simple answer that I can understand. How does he do it?
Here's your wife.
Okay, I shouldn't ask a question if I don't give you the answer. All right, so Judaism. Judaism is the answer. That's what Judaism is for. It changes us. If it's not changing you, you ain't doing Judaism. You're not. You're absolutely not. And this is what the whole purpose is. It says in Ecclesiastes 12:11, the words of the wise, don't picture people, picture God. No, picture God talking. The words of the wise are like goads. The words of the sages, the words of the rabbis, the words of all the Jewish teachers from the past, our fathers. They're like goads. You guys know what a goad is? It's like a big stick with a arrowhead on the end, or a point, a thorn that you stick in the butt of a horse or a mule or an ox to make them move.
It's always like
I can't hear you, hon. They're like goads and masters of these collections. What collections?
of goats.
Of their words. Of their words. The writings. The masters of these collections of their wise words are like driven nails. They cannot be moved. They're given by one shepherd. If you want to have a life that is unmovable, unshakable, you must get that strength from Judaism. It's not going to come from any place else. It'll drive you like a nail, and you won't be moved. That's all I can say. Now we're going to sing. Oh, Becca, can you hand me the music? This is called, it's not what you think. It's not make for me sanctuary. It's make for me sanctuary. Make for me sanctuary. Say that.
Make for me sanctuary.
Okay, let's try again. Say this. Make for me sanctuary.
Make for me sanctuary.
I will be as a tree planted in the house of the Lord, like the palm or cedar tall, flourish in the courts of our God. Ve'asu li mikdash v'shachanti betocham. Make for me sanctuary, so I will dwell in and on my people. Priests and kings will be firm and strong as planted trees forever. In the kingdom forever. Again. I will be as a tree planted in the house of the Lord, like a palm or cedar tall, will flourish in the courts of our God. V'asuli mikdash v'shachanti betocham. Make for me sanctuary, so I will dwell in and on my people. Priest and king will be firm and strong as planted trees forever. In the kingdom forever. Acacia, myrtle, olive tree, growing in the desert again. Wilderness will become a pool, fountains in the desert I send. Va'asuli mikdash v'shachanti betocham. Oh, make for me sanctuary, so I will dwell in and on my people. Priests and kings will be firm and strong as planted trees forever. In the kingdom forever. Up to his holy house, seeking to worship the King. The place where you set your name, our heart and our strength we will bring to you. Up to his holy house, seeking to worship the King. The place where you set your name, our heart and our strength will bring to you. Our heart and our strength we will bring. I will be as a tree planted in the house of the Lord, like a palm or the cedar tall, will flourish in the courts of our God. Oh, there asu li mikdash v'shach anti betocham. Oh, make for me sanctuary, so I will dwell in and on my people. Priests and kings will be firm and strong as planted trees forever, in the kingdom forever. Up to his holy house, seeking to worship the King. The place where you set your name, our heart and our strength we will bring to you. Oh, up to his holy house, seeking to worship the King. The place where you set your name, our heart and our strength we will bring to you. Our heart and our strength we will bring. Our heart and our strength we will bring to you. Our heart and our strength we will bring. Doesn't that sound fantastic? Resonant, baby. Let's pray. Thank you, Abba, for your strength, not our strength. And I thank you, Father, for touching us by your Ruach to give us strength of mind, our Moach, our mind, and giving us strength of heart, of our Lev, of our Mea. Give us strength in our gut and let it come out to make us reflect heaven in the name of Yeshua. Thank you, Abba. Amen. Let's do Kiddush.